and I will run through some housekeeping. Okay, we'll just give people a chance to jump in. When it ticks on to 1 minute past, we will kick off. I'll just repeat some information in the chat. So we will be using the chat function today, and we will be recording today's session. And we'll just give people a minute to jump in. Okay, let's get started. So welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us this afternoon for our Career Insights Working in Water webinar. So it's hosted by the British Hydrological Society, and it's a real team effort in bringing this to you today. So thank you to all our panel and contributors in advance. We have about 1 hour to hear from some very interesting people who are going to tell you about what they do and answer any questions that you might have. We've got a little bit of housekeeping just to spin through very quickly before we get going. So we would ask you to please mute your microphone and switch off your video. The meeting is being recorded, and we're hoping to be able to post this on our YouTube channel after, so you can digest it at your leisure. During the meeting, if you'd like to ask a question, please just write it in the chat and send it to everybody. We've got a specific time period allocated at the end of the meeting to go through everyone's and Q&As. Kirsty and Will be collating those for us, so thank you guys for that. So the plan for the next hour is we're going to hear from Duncan, who's the current president of the British Hydrological Society. We'll then be hearing about what people do in their day jobs, why it's interesting, hopefully sparking some interesting questions and debate at the end of this session. We've got a slot here around funding, resources and support, so hopefully be able to signpost you to things that will be useful for you and interesting. We've got a Q&A, ask the panel, and then we will wrap up with ways that you can get in touch with us and ask us any further questions. So, like I say, please feel free to post things into the chat, and we haven't got much time, so I think we will just get started. So I would love to hand over to Duncan Faulkner at this point. Duncan, are you there?
I am. Thanks, Alex. Well, there are some questions that it's never a good idea to ask. How old are you? Are you pregnant? And into that category, I would put, am I a real hydrologist? Because careers in hydrology aren't just for some sort of specialist group of people who know the secret code, who've got some specialist qualification or who know the handshake. Careers in hydrology are available and open to all sorts of people from all sorts of backgrounds. And hopefully today we'll hear a bit of variety of those backgrounds and some idea of the routes in. I can thoroughly recommend working in hydrology. I've been working in hydrology for over 30 years now. And my route in was very convoluted, really. I did a physics degree and didn't really understand very much of physics at all, although it was interesting. And then I started applying for jobs, and I got so many job rejections, at least 20, 25. I should explain to anybody under the age of something or other that back in the 1990s, pre-email days, you applied for jobs by paper letter and you got paper letters back. And I got so many paper rejection letters back that I actually made a collage. I have it here of all my job rejections. You can perhaps see a few familiar logos on there. Thames Water, Lucky Escape there. And so I ended up doing a master's course and finding my way into hydrology eventually from that. And it's taken me to some interesting places, literal geographical places that you can see on the slide here. So looking at dam safety in Myanmar on the top left there, a flooded coal mine in Australia on the right. Thousands and thousands of bike rides to work here at JBA in the Yorkshire Dales, and then to getting involved in running of BHS as well, British Hydrological Society, and we had our 40th birthday a couple of years ago. So I'm looking forward to today. I hope you are too as well. Thanks for joining us, and I'll pass on to whoever is next now.
Thank you, Duncan. That's a great way to kick us off today. So just pop that on the screen. So this is the purpose of the British Hydrological Society, or BHS as we call it. And it's just worth maybe bearing this in mind as we go through today's webinar. We are here to help and encourage. So this is the running order for a day in the life. We've got Chris, Samantha, Rhiannon and Ed who are all going to tell you about why their jobs are so interesting and give you some insights into what they do. So if we kick off with Chris, and Chris, I'll move your slides along.
Alex, Duncan, both, thank you very much. Hello to everyone online. It's good to be here, and thanks for the invite to present for a few minutes on, I suppose, my insight, my day-to-day working life or experiences from working water. If you can go to the next slide for me, please. I'm at the University of Strathclyde in Glasgow. I've been here for 7.5 years. Before that, I was in Australia for nearly 8 years, which is a reference back actually to something that Duncan mentioned just in his talk just then. I'm a hydrologist by background. I came through the civil engineering route, and I'm still in the civil engineering department here at Strathclyde. But I'm also quite sciencey in my approach and the work that I do. And I would class myself as being a multi-hazard person. So I come at water primarily from the hazard perspective, so floods and droughts, extreme weather events, and how they impact us, and with a particular focus, of course, on water and water resources and a variety of other sort of areas that all connect through to what is hydrology. So I think the first point I would just say is hydrology, of course, as a discipline is very broad, even in itself, even as a sub-discipline of perhaps geography or civil engineering. It's a very diverse and wide-ranging topic. And you have the ability, I think, in a career within both engineering, but also specifically in hydrology, of course, to be able to pick and choose almost which flavor or which part of water you're most interested in. For me, it's extreme events. In the next kind of 3 or 4 slides, I just want to pick on 4 different points that I wanted to sort of highlight, I suppose, that relate to both my career up to this point and how they connect to my job as an academic at a university. Can you go to the next slide for me, please? And the first one is, and again, so I think Duncan touched on this in his little introduction there, was water is wide, diverse, and simply can pretty much take you anywhere in terms of a career. I've been incredibly fortunate in the time that I have been an academic, and that's since 2008, which is a disturbingly long time now, to have both worked in different countries. So I've been permanently based in Australia and of course the UK, but also then to have sought and got opportunities to work in a variety of different settings, both different geographical settings, ranging from the very far north in Svalbard to well, the southernmost areas down in Australia, often in differing climates, of course. But the opportunities that have come from the working across disciplines, perhaps, and certainly across different geographical areas, makes for a very exciting, very interesting life. And it's the research, of course, that underpins these. That is the reason that I do it. I don't do it necessarily to travel. Travel is a very lovely byproduct, I suppose, but also then means we get to work in some really interesting areas with some really diverse topics and with some excellent people, and hopefully have a little bit of fun along the way. Next slide for me, please, Alex. Closely related to that then is what is water? And I touched on this, I think, at the beginning when I just introduced myself, that for me, water is one of those true, complete, cross-cutting topics or disciplines. Water really is, of course, interdisciplinary. We all need water for survival, for life. So, of course, from a personal, human perspective. But then from a work perspective, from my role as an academic and as a researcher and as an educator, is that has enabled me to look at water from a variety of different perspectives. That includes extreme weather, which is really the core of what I do. So whether it's floods or droughts, storms, but also I have had the opportunity, by working in hydrology and in water, to have a range of different, I suppose, impacts or applications of my work, ranging from weather prediction through to stream flow, through to water resource and water shortage projections and modeling. And one of the great things I think with being an academic is having that flexibility, and certainly water as a discipline or as a cross-cutting theme, or however you want to describe water, I think enables us to do that. Next slide then, please. And then following on from that is, and this of course connects to my particular area of work or my particular area of interest, which is everything connects to everything. We work and live in a real world. Water, of course, is a strong connector between things. I work in this multi-hazard, cascading risk space with a particular focus on water and extreme events. But using that as a lens through which to do the sort of work that I do, these complex interconnections, understanding them, predicting them, looking into the future, is a wonderful way of being able to frame and understand, of course, the thing that we all depend on, which is water. And then fast forward, of course, into the future. How are these changes? How is water going to change, whether it's water availability or indeed how it impacts us through extreme weather events? This connectivity and this complexity around water and our relationship with water is very much central to everything that I do from a research perspective, and of course then connects to more broadly our interests probably united across water. And then last one for me, please, Alex. And the final thing that I wanted to sort of, I suppose, finish on is that water for me is one of the things, because I think it is an essential life-giving element, is water in my career has been pivotal, both from an experience perspective, but also just from my own interests, but of being able to, not necessarily through choice, but I've definitely experienced a lot of real world events and impacts. Some of them, actually a couple of them probably a touch too close, including the one we're looking at on the screen here. Not the 1974 one, I'm not that old, but the 2011 floods, which is, if you read halfway down the page, which is really what this is referring to, which is the Brisbane floods in Australia. I was actually in Brisbane at the time of the floods, and we were evacuated actually out of the building that we were in, and couldn't go back for 3 months. That real world experience builds on previous real world experience of what water is, our relationship to water, and our experience, certainly when we're talking about extreme weather events. What that has enabled me to do, again, as a researcher, is to reflect on that, build on that. And one of course, the key things that I want to do is improve our understanding of these mechanisms, these processes, build increased resilience to them. And I can go right back even to my childhood. The 1987 storm was absolutely pivotal for me in why I wanted to go into hydrology and weather and climate and sciences, is because of the impact and the rawness, I suppose, of it. And that has stayed with me all the way through my career. One thing I wouldn't do, though, is recommend living through a flood unless you can particularly avoid it. But 4 thoughts there, and I'm looking forward to the panel discussion a little bit later on. I'm also looking forward to hearing the thoughts from our other co-presenters. So I'm going to sign off there, and then I'll come back for the broader discussion a little bit later on. Thanks very much. Thanks for listening, and thanks, Alex.
Thanks so much, Chris. Really interesting, and we're looking forward to asking you more questions about that later. So over to Samantha Mitchell now.
Hi everyone, thanks Alex. Hi, yes, so my name's Samantha Mitchell, and I am currently a flood forecasting specialist advisor with Natural Resources Wales. So it's great to be here today and to sort of give a little background of how I got here. So I didn't have a particularly burning desire to be a hydrologist, admittedly, when I was growing up, but I had always loved science from a really early age, so I always knew I was going to be a scientist of some description. And in secondary school, I started to become really interested and really aware of environmental issues, so that sort of naturally led me on to study environmental science. So I went to Lancaster University, but I actually also spent my second year as an exchange student at the University of Western Ontario in Canada, which was amazing. Although in the interest of full disclosure, I should probably admit that hydrology was my least favourite lecture whilst I was out there. It was actually nothing to do with the subject matter. It was more the fact that the lectures were 8:30 on a Monday morning in the winter term. So for us, that meant a 20-minute walk up to campus in the dark, in sub-zero temperatures, and usually during a blizzard. But I think I actually managed to make it to all lectures on time, which was quite impressive, if I say so myself. Next slide, please. Thank you. So my first job after I graduated was as a hydrometry officer in Environment Agency Wales. And you hear a lot of people saying they were thrown in the deep end when they started work. Well, I actually was, because my first day coincided with the team's annual water safety training. So I was kitted out in a dry suit and a self-inflating life jacket and actually thrown in the deep end of a swimming pool, which was slightly traumatic. But despite that, I stayed in the team for a good 2.5 years, I think. And it was a fab job. It was just brilliant. So I got based in the Monmouth office, driving around the River Wye catchment, which was just a stunning part of the world. And yeah, just spending my days emptying rain gauges and dipping boreholes and measuring river flows, generally maintaining the hydrometric network. And looking back on it now, it was just a perfect start to the rest of a hydrology career, really, because it was just such a good introduction to all the different types of hydrometric data and different issues you get with that as well. Next slide, please. So it said sort of 2.5 years in the team, and then my next job after that was with Hydrology and Water Resources team in South Wales in Cardiff, and I was in there for about 6 or 7 years. And I started out as a water resources officer, which is a bit of a weird job title. It was more of an assistant hydrologist, really. And then after about a year, there was a hydrologist vacancy rather in the next sort of grade up. And then the last 18 months or so as the team's technical specialist. It's a bit more focused on training and mentoring then. But during my time in the team, I was carrying out lots of hydrological calculations, using all the hydrometric data that I'd previously been collecting in my other job. So things like low flow calculations, so we would do those for individual points on a water course that may then be used to set limits on discharge consents, for example, to ensure there's enough water in the river for dilution. And then as well as sort of individual points being calculated, we sort of do multiple point calculations for wider studies, things like catchment abstraction management strategies for abstraction licensing and habitats direct review of consents and stuff like that. So that's the low flow end. We also did a lot of high flow calculations as well, using the flood estimation handbook methods. So things like checking calculations submitted to us by developers as part of a flood consequence assessment, for example. And also, again, more sort of wider catchment studies. So we would estimate the different return periods of multiple points along a water course for use in things like catchment flood management plans. Next slide, please. So while I was in the hydrology team, I always preferred the high flow end of things rather than the low flow end. So in 2008, a vacancy became available in the National Flood Forecasting team, which was still Environment Agency Wales then, and then became NRW in 2013, I think. And yeah, so 2008, I moved across and I've been here ever since. So there's a team of 10 of us. And 3 of us are hydrologists, and between us 3, we basically develop and maintain all the fluvial flood forecasting models across Wales. So these are a mixture of PDM ring for runoff models and 1D routing and hydraulic models. And we currently cover about 29 catchments, I think, and about 100 and I think we're up to 112 now individual forecasting locations. So they're the blue triangles you can see on the map there. And interestingly, we're about to roll out a brand new model for the Upper Wye catchment, which I've been involved with recently. So it's really nice because I've come full circle back to my River Wye days where I started. And all the forecasting models are configured onto our forecasting system, which is called Fuse Wales. So this takes real-time rainfall and river level data from NRW's hydrometric network, along with forecast rainfall data from the Met Office, and then it runs those models in real time, either hourly or half hourly, depending on what's needed, to provide a forecast of river levels up to 5 days ahead. And those forecasts can then be used to issue flood alerts and flood warnings to the public. Next slide, please. So one of the questions in the brief for us as presenters was, why do we enjoy our job? And there's so much I enjoy about it. I could probably do an entire 10 minutes just on why I like it. But in brief, I think the main reason is I'm a very technical person. So I really love getting a load of raw data into a blank spreadsheet or into our calibration software, and then just like wrangling that data into something useful. I never get tired of doing that. And also, it probably sounds a bit cheesy, but I really like knowing that my job makes a difference somewhere. So back in my hydrology days, the low flow calculations that we did there, for example, helped basically ensure there was enough water in the river for the environment and what the environment needed. So we were sort of helping endangered species like trout and salmon and otters and that sort of thing. And now in my current role, all the flood forecasting models can help us issue flood warnings earlier. So it means we can hopefully give people more time to protect themselves and their possessions if flooding is about to happen. And another cheesy one is just the people I work with, really. So I've worked with a lot of different people over the years from a lot of different specialities, and they've all just been a lovely bunch of people, but very different people, but we've all got that same sort of passion for the environment and sort of wanting to help it, really. So yeah, I think if you're the type of person who enjoys fiddling with data and wants to make a difference, then hydrology is an excellent career choice. And I've thoroughly enjoyed my career so far, and I've no intentions of doing anything else for a good while yet. So, and then finally, last slide, please. Just a bit of a plug, if I can. So NRW have their own podcast series, and last year we did a mini series on flood risk management, and there were 10 different episodes, each covering a different team's work. And episode 7 was me and my colleague talking about flood forecasting. So if anyone wants to know a little bit more detail about that, then you can, it's available from all good podcast providers. So if you just search for Natural Resources Wales podcast, it should come up. So that's me. Thank you very much. Diolch yn fawr.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Samantha. And we will tune into that podcast as well. So thank you. And now we are going to swiftly move on to Rhiannon Bryan, who is a hydrologist and water resources modeller at JBA Consulting.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming along today. And an apology in advance. I don't have as many pretty pictures on my slides. So apologies for that. Next slide, please, Alex. So who am I and what do I do? So I'm a hydrologist. I've got 6 years experience working at JBA Consulting. I'm based within the Glasgow office within our water resources and international hydrology team, which I think is the longest team name in JBA. So my experience is mainly in analysis of hydrometeorological data, rainfall runoff modelling, flow duration curves, water resources and drought assessment and planning, and hydrometry. So yeah, I've had a huge amount of experience at JBA, which has been fantastic, and I've loved every second of it. So that kind of takes on to why hydrology. I think most of my points have already been covered, so that's quite nice to know that we all love it for the same reason. But there's always interesting and new projects to do. Each catchment is different and complex in its own way and has its own challenges, which means you have to apply problem solving, analytical thinking, and creative thinking as well to sort of address those issues. I also really like it because there's opportunities to work across disciplines. It feeds in to and works alongside a load of different ones like hydraulic modelling, ecology, many more. So it's always a good opportunity to learn a little bit more about what people do. Another reason is I really love data analysis. I really agreed with Sam when she said that, she loves putting data into a spreadsheet. That's also what I really enjoy doing, trying to get as much out of data as possible. in the way that you can. And then it also deepens your understanding of environment and the society. Water is connected to so many different things. So yeah, next slide, please. So a day in the life is quite tricky because I work on so many different projects. So I've just put a couple in here, which I'm currently working on or have worked on in the last year. So yeah, I've helped to develop a hydrometric data and hydrology strategy for the Isle of Man. Going forward, what do they want to achieve and how can they achieve that? I'm currently seconded as a hydrologist, a senior hydrologist in the Canal and Rivers Trust, which has been a great experience. They've got a great team and really interesting work. I'm currently working with the Wyre Rivers Trust on a methodology for gauging small lowland watercourses, which is really challenging. In the last year, I've worked on 4 international hydrology projects. Currently, I'm working on a water resources management plan for the St Helena Island, which is a British overseas territory off the coast of South Africa. But I've also recently worked on a project in Mongolia and the Congo. That was for flooding, though. And yeah, 7 water resources modelling projects. So outage planning, so what happens when part of the system goes offline and what's the impact? Developing water resources management plans and assessing drought resilience. Yeah, next slide, please. So in my career, I started with an undergraduate degree in earth science, so geology. But when I was doing my degree, I realised I wasn't actually interested in any of the jobs that you can get as a geologist. So I decided to do a year in industry just to see what other jobs were out there, basically. And I did my year in industry at JBA in our Warrington office, and loved it so much and gained some really amazing experience. So when I went back to finish my degree, I then came back to JBA and started at the grad scheme. And that was when I really fell in love with hydrology and started working on it full time. During my time at JBA, I've also undertaken a part-time MSc at Cranfield University in Advanced Water Management. And I finished that last year, which takes us to where we are now. I think, next slide, but I think that might be my last one.
I think that's it from you, Rhiannon.
Brilliant.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time, everyone.
And hopefully we'll get a chance to ask Rhiannon a bit more about her international travels, because she's been to some very interesting places on various field trips recently. So I'm going to definitely ask you about that in the Q&A, Rhiannon. But it's over to Ed Dimmock next. So get your slides up, Ed. Off you go. Thanks.
Thank you. Hello. Good afternoon, everyone. Very pleased to be here. Thank you for the invite. My name is Ed Dimmock. I am a team leader for the hydrometry and telemetry team in the Thames area of the Environment Agency. You may not have heard of hydrometry and telemetry, although seeing those slides come up, it's been mentioned already. Hopefully you've heard of the Environment Agency. The H&T teams, hydrometry and telemetry teams, are responsible for creating data. So many of the slides ahead of me talked about data already, hydrological data. And that's exactly what I and my team create. We are the field hydrologists, if you like. So we are the teams who are out and about on site, designing, installing, maintaining hydrometric monitoring solutions to create all the data that all of the wonderful work that we've heard about so far today is based on. I have a team of 11 people. We have a sister team in Thames area of the Environment Agency with another 10 people, and there are 14 areas within the Environment Agency. So you can see that we're spread over a very wide area, and we do an awful lot of monitoring, which leads me to the next slide, please. That's just a quick indication of sort of the peppering, that the real blanket actually of sites that we have and the type of data that we produce. Our hydrological data is rainfall, river flow, river levels, groundwater levels. And we have a huge network of monitoring stations that continue to do that continuously. In Thames area alone, my team and my sister team are responsible for just about 1,000 permanent monitoring stations. And if you times that by 14 across the whole of the EA, you'll see that there's an awful lot of data created. Just to give you a bit of a flavour of what that number actually looks like, for river level data points alone, in a year, the EA creates 155 million data points per year across all those river level monitoring sites. You can see that we're creating vast amounts of data that go a very long way. If I could have the next slide, please, I'll give you a bit of insight into how I came to be here. ID through the ages. We all got name badges on us all the time these days, don't we? So I've used those as an indication of how I got to be here. If you start at the top left there, there's what you'll see is a fairly clueless young schoolboy who, when he was asked, what do you think you want to do when you're older, didn't really know. And in fact, I don't know if any of you on the line ever did one of those career choice questionnaire things in school where you had to fill in a load of questions. They ran it through some wonderful process and came back with a suggested career. Well, when I did that, I think it misunderstood my answers, where I told it that I was very keen to be outdoors and enjoyed nature and the countryside, because it gave me the result of being a suggested career of a florist. Suffice to say, me and my mates thought that was absolutely hilarious. I tore that up, threw it in the bin, and pushed on, because what did I have a clue about? Well, actually, I knew, as I said, that I did love to be outdoors. I was very practical, enjoyed being outdoors and seeing and learning and understanding about the world around me. So that led me obviously to geography. I took geography A-level, and then when it came time to go to university, I realised that I could further that enjoyment of being outdoors and learning about the world around me with an earth science degree. I saw very similar to Rhiannon there. So that degree was based primarily around geology, a lot of physical geography, and then some resource management as well. And of course, what's the resource we're all talking about as hydrologists? Water. And that really piqued my interest through some of the modules there. And I went on to take a master's in water resource management thereafter. And it was during my time there on my dissertation that I interacted with members of the relatively newly formed Environment Agency to use some of their data in my dissertation. And it was there that I realised that it was possible to get paid to work outdoors. And it actually was, something that was a real role, a real career, and had, prospects. So I continued to apply. I was interested to hear there earlier that Duncan was talking about paper applications. I did write many dozens of letters to various places in the Environment Agency, and eventually I came to be working in hydrometry and telemetry team in the Environment Agency just about 25 years ago, actually. So I've been in and around hydrometry and telemetry and hydrology and other associated fields within the EA on and off for about coming up to 25 years now. As is shown by the range of dodgy haircuts and dodgy looking pieces of old ID there. If I could have the next slide, please. So what does this mean? What does my day job look like? Well, as I said, I'm a team leader. I do still get out and about on site, but actually I look after a team that are out on site creating data in a range of sites like this. If you've seen green kiosks or little brick buildings by rivers and weirs like that, the chances are they're probably one of the Environment Agencies or Natural Resources Wales, because the hydrometry and telemetry teams are absolutely everywhere. As I said, that network is very dense. It's one of the most dense monitoring networks in the whole of Europe, and therefore in the whole of the world, actually, in terms of the number of sites we have permanently monitoring. So across a range of environments, a range of sites like that. Apologies, I went for the green photos and didn't put any of the urban ones in there, because of course we do monitor in all types of catchment, from urban to rural and beyond. Next slide, please. We use all sorts of technology to do this out on site. We're ever innovating to find new ways to do this. The middle picture there shows one of our favourite methods of creating river flow data and calibrating our river flow gauging stations, and that's remote control boats, which negates the need to have staff on the water or in the water, although we do still do that. If you can see that bottom right photo there, that's a very young looking Ed, back in the days when he actually used to get his hands wet and dirty in rivers. So all of this leads me to the question I think that Alex was keen for us to answer. Do we enjoy our job? Do we enjoy being hydrologists? And I think the resounding answer for that from me is an absolute yes. As I said, I've had a very long career, as have many of the others on the call so far. I do not intend changing my field of work away from hydrology. I work with a fantastic team in a fantastic organisation. We create vast amounts of data which underpins all aspects of water resource management, flood risk management, environment management. It goes far and wide. That data goes out, and I think probably will touch just about everyone in the country in some way or another, whether that's helping to maintain, improve the environment within which they live, help protect them from flooding, or help make sure they've got enough water in their taps to drink and cook with. So do I think that's worthwhile? I absolutely do. Do I enjoy my work, take value from it? I absolutely do. So I think I'll probably go a bit further than all of that and say, yes, I enjoy my job, but actually I love being a hydrologist and I'm going to stick with it. Thank you.
Fabulous stuff. Thank you so much, everybody. I hope you all found that inspirational. I'm sort of struck by the amount of choices and variety and interesting things that people are getting stuck into on a daily basis, which can be a little bewildering, I suspect. But luckily, we are going to hopefully point you in the direction of some useful resources, some guidance, some networks you can connect with. And if this is your passion and you have been inspired today, some funding to help you on that journey. So Emma Cross and I are going to talk to you about where you can find all this stuff. We'll also be posting lots of links into the chat as well. So let's get stuck in. Launched today is the BHS and JBA Trust Studentship Awards. So this is a bursary of up to £3,000 for any hydrology, water, catchment management related masters, and that can be an MSc and MRes. We'll put a link in the chat. We'd love people to apply for this money. It's there to be given to people who are going to make use of it. It's really not a very onerous application process either. It's a very short online form, and you have to write 250 words around why you're interested in pursuing it, what motivates you. I mean, you could reference this webinar if you liked, and how, what difference it would actually make to you. So bear that one in mind if you're thinking of a master's course for next year. Also, just wanted to highlight this free student membership for a variety of professional organisations. So obviously, we have to mention the British Hydrological Society. It's free student membership. You also, as a student member, are able to access conferences and events and travel grants. The QR code to sign up is there, and we will add it into the chat as well. But it's fantastic to be part of the community and be able to learn from people who are in these jobs already. Similarly, CIWEM, so the Chartered Institute of Water and Environmental Management, and the ICE Institute of Civil Engineering, both have free student membership offers that enables you to access quite a lot of content in areas that might interest you or things that you want to explore further, to see if you do want to pursue that as a career. So technical papers, online publications. They have early careers networks as well, so you can meet with people sort of in a similar situation to yourself or just starting out on a career, and yeah, share information and knowledge with your peers. And there's a lot of fantastic free resources out there as well. So also just wanted to highlight a few events and networks that are coming up. So the BHS has an early careers symposium. This will be at the University of Liverpool, and the theme's hydrology in the community. So this is really a showcase of all the interesting hydrological related work that's going on nationally and internationally. It's great to have a chat to people about their job, find out what they do, and just get a bit more in-depth insight into kind of what's cutting edge at the moment. There's a variety of talks and networks as well. So the Young Hydrologic Society is international society for young hydrologists. They host various events, so there's a link there, and various other online free to attend talks that are coming up in subjects that you may find interesting and may open your eyes to a particular area or discipline that maybe you hadn't thought of. So it's a very whistle-stop tour. I'm going to hand over to Emma now, who's just going to talk about some of the opportunities that the Environment Agency have coming up as well. So Emma, I'll just get your slide up.
That's great, thanks Alex. So yeah, just want to use this opportunity to just do a quick shout out for opportunities in the Environment Agency, as they might help you to work in water. So we have our own careers site, which tells you more about our early career opportunities. So that includes industry placements and also apprenticeships. We also run our own summer development internship program. And we also have our own graduate training scheme. And the title of that graduate training scheme is Environment and Science. We also have our own jobs board, and you can sign up for job alerts through the jobs board. So all the links that you can see within this slide are going to be shared. So do check them out. And I think that's all from me, Alex. So I'm going to hand back to you at this point.
Okay, fab. Thank you, Emma. So if you did want to kind of connect, then obviously joining a professional membership is great, but there's also kind of more informal ways just to find out what's going on in this sector, learn about opportunities, the things that people are talking about, access resources, and get a bit of an insight. So please feel free to connect with us. So the BHS has a YouTube channel where previous recordings, talks, conferences are posted and recorded. We have a LinkedIn site, and recently moved across to Blue Sky. We have abandoned the madness that is Twitter and Elon Musk. I won't get into that now. So yeah, well, I'm just going to post all of those links in this chat here. But I think what we'll probably do now is just get into the Q&A. So if you do have any questions for our panel, please feel free to drop them into the chat now. We did have a few questions come in prior to this event as well. So what I might do is while we are just waiting for any other questions to come in, is post those to the panel. So first question out there is, what type of skills do I need to be a hydrologist? What sort of things should people be looking to kind of upskill themselves in and utilize? So if the panel, if you guys are happy to put your cameras on, and great, that's fab. I can see you all. So who would like to take that one? What sort of skills do you think we need? Chris, can I come to you first as you teach this?
I could just say the obvious, and I think Ed's talking in particular, I think highlighted, but for me, one of the drivers, certainly why I wanted to become a hydrologist, is to get out and about and get into the real world and do something, or Rain as well said, that makes a difference or makes a change of some type. Hydrology does all of those things. So the skills needed for that are probably a love of the outdoors. I mean, that sounds a bit general, but a love for being in or around water, recognizing the power of water, the benefit, the necessity of water. So having those just having an interest in something is absolutely vital, I would say. I mean, you can translate that to any career, but certainly in water, is getting out and about and being out in the real world. That's certainly something that's driven me in my career and got me into wanting to do hydrology.
Fab. Thank you, Chris. Has anyone got anything else to add? Like, are there any particular skills that actually you found really useful, or anything you studied that you think, I'm really glad I did that?
I don't know if I could offer a particular skill, but I'd further Chris's notion there. A general interest and curiosity, I think, would go a long way, certainly to become a field hydrologist, as I and my team are. Linked to that, some practical ability is really pivotal. It's a very practical, technical, hands-on type of a role that my team fulfill. So being able to work outdoors, being able to manipulate and interact with various pieces of equipment will always be good. The thing that we always say if we're recruiting, for example, is that we don't expect people to have direct experience necessarily of hydrology or even of hydrometry, because we realize that it can be quite niche. So rather what we always look for is something quite broad, transferable skills, and thankfully so many of the piece of equipment and instrumentation we use these days rely on these wonderful things, our phones. So if you're good at using apps, good at using bits and bobs like that, and a decent set of hands and hand tools, you'll go a long way. So I would always say that broad interest, broad skills, and exactly as Chris said, the ability to be outside is always useful.
One of the questions that people in this call might be considering or weighing up is whether or not to go on to do postgraduate study after an undergraduate degree. I'd kind of like to come to everyone in the panel for that one, actually, and just get your thoughts on that. Samantha, can I come to you first?
Yeah, sure. So I don't have a further degree. I just have a bog standard bachelor's, and I sort of very much went in. My first role was very much sort of foot in the door, get in at the bottom and get started, and then that was my entry in, basically. So if you want to do a master's and if it's something that you're really interested in, then yeah, by all means go for it. But then if I didn't do a master's because I just wasn't sure what I wanted to do. Environmental science was such a broad topic and I enjoyed so many different parts of it. I didn't really know at that point what I wanted to specialise in. So I just thought, well, let's see what jobs are out there. So, I went in very much at the bottom and sort of worked my way up. But that's pretty easy to do because you're working then and you're gaining those skills. And if you're interested in that, it's quite easy to sort of move around once you're in. So that would be my take on it.
Thank you. Does anyone else want to add to that? Go on, Ed.
Yeah, I'm happy to. I think so. I spoke there that I did take a master's, but I'd like to think that perhaps a talk, a webinar like this might replace, for me anyway, the need to do a master's, perhaps, in that I went on to a master's to carry on learning about the industry and what was out there, and to see what opportunities might come. As I said, through my master's, I did interact with hydrometry officers from the Environment Agency and learnt about that opportunity. But I've just told you all about hydrometry in the Environment Agency, so I don't need to go and take a master's to learn that, perhaps. So I think it's always horses for courses, isn't it? If learning is your thing and you're keen and can find the funding, hopefully, I would definitely recommend it. I did learn a lot, but on the flip side, also, I'm very aware that many people don't take the postgraduate route, and here in the EA. And we have many people who don't have postgraduate qualifications or even degrees to start with. As I said before, what we'd rather is practical, capable people with that strong sense of drive and keenness.
Thanks. Chris, have you got a perspective on that from a sort of academic point of view?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I was going to say exactly those words. From an academic side, to go into I suppose the career that I have, going through from lecturer, professor, that sort of route, is a PhD is an essential component of that. It doesn't mean have my further learning in a very specialized and specific area. In my case, it was compound events, multi-hazards, and I've followed that through in my career, and I wouldn't be doing the work I'm doing now if I hadn't have done that. But that also doesn't mean that if I wasn't an academic, I wouldn't necessarily have needed, of course, the PhD, and could be working at an agency or consultancy or wherever doing excellent hydrology work, and you don't necessarily need it, perhaps. So the advantages to having a PhD, of course, the ability to focus in on something and have that that research mindset perhaps on things, but it definitely translates, of course, to the work that I'm doing. But I'm definitely an advocate of a good PhD and the opportunity that gives you for a period of time to really delve into something good.
Brilliant. Thanks, everyone. We've got some questions popping into the chat now, so we'll just take those as I can see them, and then Kirsty and Will, if I've missed any, please holler. So one from Alicia to start with. I would like to travel and live abroad with my future career. Any advice? Oh, I wonder, Rhiannon, if this is a good time to bring you in, because you have recently traveled to interesting places. Do you want to come in on that one first?
Yeah, so I've recently been to St Helena, which I mentioned in my presentation, where we sort of went on various site visits to, well, maybe slightly less glamorous water treatment works and reservoirs, but also looking at catchments and streams and flows. So yeah, and then lots of meeting with stakeholders to discuss, you know, the current state of supplies and demands, and what kind of threats they're currently facing or challenges. So I could never kind of overstate the importance of getting out there, even if you are having to travel to the other side of the globe to do it. It is always a great opportunity for learning, and it's always good to see things on the ground rather than just looking at them on a bird's eye view on GIS, for sure. With regards to how can you achieve that, I think a career in hydrology is always a good way of doing that, because water is everywhere and that people have the same problems across the globe. So I would say get as much experience as you can. Try and work on projects which give you the opportunity to travel and do some international work. But yeah, I'm not sure I have any specific advice apart from that.
Thanks, Rhiannon. I mean, Chris has been all over. Chris, how did those opportunities come about?
It's not an easy one to answer that, because I think every opportunity has been different, has come about in a slightly different way. Certainly, it's related perhaps a little bit to what I was saying there with regards to the PhD. Doing a PhD for me opened up opportunities to travel like nothing else had ever done before. I had straight away had an opportunity to support someone else's research by going out to Kazakhstan and doing some field work, because I had the skills and that they needed to do that particular bit of surveying. But then other things I have probably sought myself. So, for example, after the PhD, I then wanted to go and travel and work abroad. And so I opted to look for jobs in the Southern Hemisphere and ended up in Australia. So it was more by design at that point. And then since then, because I like getting out and about and I like travel and meeting people, so I probably naturally gravitate towards opportunities when they come, as well as still actively seeking, and I haven't probably changed in that. So that doesn't really answer your question, but a variety of ways. And if you're so minded and you want to get out and travel, there are usually you can make things happen.
Thanks, Chris. There's a few more questions on the chat, so we'll spin through those. So this one's around professional chartership. So for those on the panel who have experience with professional chartership, how has it influenced your career and your professional development? Is there a particular chartership that is especially valuable in this field? And what's been your experience with the process and its impact? Have we got anyone on the panel who is professionally chartered?
I'm currently working towards it, so I can.
Okay, brilliant, Sam. Yeah, what's your experience of that?
Honestly, it takes a lot of time. There's an awful lot of competencies that we seem to have to dig up really good examples from your career, and that's not something that comes naturally to me, to try and figure out what I'm really good at and really analyze it and get it down into paper. And it's more a reflection of me rather than anything else, but I find it quite guilty if I'm trying to work on something for SciWem when I should be doing a part of my day job instead. And that's no reflection on NRW. NRW are really, really supportive. We've got some great SciWem representatives and mentors who are really, really encouraging, and they're a great source of help. But it's one of those things that's been on my list to do for ages, and I'm slowly chipping away at it. So we've made a list of the competencies and working with somebody else who's also going through a chartership route at the moment. So we're kind of working our way through it, but it can be a bit of a long process. But equally, there's people who just sort of lock themselves away in a room all weekend and just get it done in one weekend and get it sent off and it's all sorted. So personally, I've never felt it's hindered me in my career not being chartered. But then I have spent my entire career in Environment Agency Wales and Natural Resources Wales, and 17 years in one job. So I think, it may be different if I were to look for a job elsewhere. It's particularly external to NRW in the sort of consultancy world. I think it would be much more useful to have a chartership in those sorts of situations. So yeah, definitely a good thing to have, but just be aware it does take time to put everything together to get it.
And I think in this, we're talking today, aren't we, about careers in, working in water. It's so broad, and there are so many kind of aspects to that there is probably an organisation that offers chartership structure and that kind of professional mentoring that's might be more bespoke to some areas than others. So I think it kind of depends almost which kind of area and discipline you're interested in and working in. And there's a lot of information on all of their websites, and they do offer kind of good support and mentoring and resources and access to technical kind of development as well. Anyone got any other thoughts on that before we move on to the next question? Okay, so are there many part-time and remote working opportunities these days?
Yes.
I
I think most
employers
these days will offer strong degrees of flexibility in roles. I couldn't speak for everyone, but certainly here in the EA, huge flexibility in how to operate.
I'm actually part-time. I work a 9-day fortnight. I dropped a day quite a while ago, just out of the fortnight, and that's just perfect for me with my personal work-life balance. But we've got the hydrologist in my team who work 3 days a week, 1 week, 4 days a week the other week, and we're all remotely because we're all since COVID we're all home based now, and we sort of meet up in the office once or twice a week. So there's huge flexibility across most organisations, I think, these days.
Yeah, and I think work-life balance is massively important and increasingly recognised as such across this sector and probably quite a few other sectors. I think COVID was probably a bit of a game changer in terms of actually people realising you don't need to meet in person all the time for everything, and there's technology that enables that now, like this webinar, for example. We can do it online. So yeah. We are coming to the end of our time. We've got a couple of minutes left. Got one more question on the topic of postgrad study. Can doing a PhD or postdoc be a disadvantage if you're looking to leave academia, perhaps putting us behind others who go in at grad level and get chartered or first-hand experience?
Can I take that one again as well?
Please.
I don't think it isn't a disadvantage. There are quite a lot of people in NRW who have PhDs. Some of them have come in straight after a PhD. Others have waited 10 years or more and then decided on a career change and moved across. One of my colleagues who I work quite closely with, she's in our warning and informing team. So responsible for sort of setting the directions of how we issue warnings and that type of thing. She actually has a PhD in volcanology and spent 10 years as a researcher on Icelandic volcanoes in a university somewhere, and then decided a few years ago that she wanted a career change and then moved across to us and has fitted in perfectly. So I wouldn't say it's a disadvantage.
Yeah, we support a lot of PhD students at JBA Trust, and the general feeling is do a PhD because you're really interested in it, because you're going to be focusing on it for 3 years and it's your passion, not because you're thinking of it as a career move. Because yeah, you can apply a PhD to pretty much anything, a lot of transferable skills, but you've got to be interested in it.
Yeah.
Did you want to come in on that?
I was probably going to echo exactly the same thoughts as Sam. Yeah, I work with many people who have PhDs, MScs, etc. And no, I don't think it puts anyone at a disadvantage. I think all experience is good.
Can I just come in there and just say it's only 3 years, so you know your co-workers aren't going to be that much further ahead. It does pass in the blink of an eye, and it'll give you different experience, whether it's the same or not.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, fabulous. Thank you so much, panel, for answering all of these questions. We are going to be writing up all the questions and sharing them online, and any others that come through that we haven't had a chance to talk about today. So we'll just leave it there for now. We'll just put some further links and ways you can connect with us on that slide there, and again everything is in the chat, so please feel free to link and reference to that. And otherwise, just a massive thank you for joining us today. I hope you found it interesting and inspiring. Massive thank you to our panel and everyone else who's helped support and put this webinar together, including our tech support people, Kirsty Murphy and Will Rust as well. Thank you very much for making it all work. That's fab. And enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy the beautiful sunshine that we're all enjoying at the moment. And if you've got any questions, you know where to find us now, so please do get in touch. Okay, thanks everyone.
Thanks,
Thank
Alex.
you.
Bye, everyone. Cheers.
Bye.
Thanks,
Good luck.
everyone. Bye.